Welcome back to Third Man In. I'm Zack Phillips, breaking down tonight's game between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Minnesota Wild. The Leafs going to 2-0 on the season, and on top of that, Auston Matthews remains on pace for 246 goals on the season. Yes, you heard that correct. Auston Matthews on pace for 246 goals this year. I mean, at this point, who's to say that he can't do it? I mean, why not? The way that this guy is playing every single time he's stepped on the ice throughout the first two games here, he looks dominant. He looks like where he was when he was back scoring in that 60-goal season, and even back when during the COVID years, during the bubble, when we saw Auston Matthews be easily the greatest goal scorer in the NHL at that point in time, or the best goal scorer in the NHL at that point in time, I should say. So, with Auston Matthews and where he's at, I think that this is one of those things with him where we could be looking at a guy who's primed to score another 60 goals this year. I think that he does it. 6 goals through your first 2 games is a strong way to start the season. If you're going to try to get back to that pace, I mean, we're looking at a guy here who scored 40 goals last season, and even with that, that was a down year. You scored 40 goals in a down year. That's pretty good. Now you come out, you start the season with 6 in the first 2. Obviously, a hat trick a game is not going to be sustainable here, but nonetheless, the ability to start on this pace and look dangerous every single time he's on the ice is something that you cannot gloss over. It is something that needs to be paid attention to with him so far this season, because it looks like this guy came out with a different mindset here. It looks like this guy came out ready to attack, ready to get back to the player that he was when he scored 60, and kind of is not accepting the fact that he only scored 40 last year as the player that he could be. He's looking at this saying 40 was almost like disrespectful to have that attached to his name, especially considering he went 60 the year before. So I think that we're going to see this guy go off this year. Now, obviously, through 2 games, you see him score 6 goals. It's like, oh yeah, great prediction. Really putting yourself on the line there. But, I mean, I think that he continues at a pace that will be very, very hard for other people around the league to catch up to. Hopefully, he can just continue to score. By the way, if you are someone who bets on this stuff, your ability to get any type of Auston Matthews anytime goal scorer at any plus money at all has just completely walked out the door. I think tonight we saw basically the trailing Matthews plus 100, plus 105s out there, and that's going to be it for a long time here throughout the rest of this season. Those numbers will not be available. I do want to remind people, obviously, we are starting fresh here on this channel, so we're having to build this up from ground zero, trying to get people over from the old channel. So if you do enjoy the content, please make sure to hit that like button as well as subscribe here to the channel. It does help support the show. Hitting on that notifications button will also send notifications every time videos are posted, live streams go live, so make sure to hit that like button. Turn on notifications here on the channel, and if you know people who are looking for the channel, looking for where we're at, make sure to send them over to Third Man In. It does help us. We'll continue to build this back to where it used to be. Obviously, I mean, broadcasting before to a couple hundred people, now down to 3 people watching right now. But appreciate everyone who kind of waited around for this stream here tonight, as you know, I did get the opportunity to go to the game. So kind of a cool atmosphere getting to see that. Now, one thing I will say, tonight's goal song, whatever it was in the building for it. I liked it. I backed it. I liked the change. Pursuit of Happiness, great song. If you watch Project X, great movie. I liked what we saw there, but I don't know if Pursuit of Happiness necessarily screams goal song. Now, tonight's goal song was actually pretty electric. Now, maybe it's because we saw it 7 times or heard it 7 times from 7 different Leafs goals here, and 3 of which were Auston Matthews goals. But I mean, I like it. I like the change. I don't have any problem with Hall & Oates, excuse me. I liked the song, but I think that at some point you got to mix it up. And I think that this was the right choice here tonight. New song. Scotiabank Arena was rocking. I tweeted out, and if you follow me on Twitter there, at Zack Phil on Twitter, X, whatever it's called now, you would have seen, like, I don't I do think that there is a need still for physicality and fighting in the game of hockey. I don't think that this is something that should be taken out, needs to be taken out. There's some people on Twitter that I really don't appreciate the opinions of when it comes to the physicality of things. I think they're kind of looking for hockey to go to like a men's league, no contact or two-hand touch kind of league. And I don't think that that's where it should go, nor will it go there. And I think that one of those things where we saw a lot of people have some type of pushback, especially the people who were very, very, very analytically driven, sit there and say, well, you can't have these guys who are fighters because they don't do this, that, and the other when it comes to the skilled side of the hockey game. If you have been in that building, and I'm sure you could see a lot of it come through on the screen, watching at home, watching TV games, maybe even listening to the radio, every single time that there was any type of physicality shown by Leafs players, that building had a pop in it. And now it's not necessarily like this just immediately translated through to the players where we would see some type of response. In fact, after the Reeves fight, Minnesota did score, but the entire energy in that building was electric. It was very high from the moment that those Reeves hits took place on his first shift, from the moment that that fight happened, like everything was just elevated. And then you see Domi going and getting involved in scrums, Bertuzzi getting involved in scrums, Jake McCabe responding. And every time that those guys are on the ice, the misinterpretation here from a lot of people on Twitter specifically, and I'm not even going to be afraid to call him out. I don't like him. I don't like his hockey takes. I think that, truthfully, the way that he views the game is just wrong. Straight up, Jeff Viet on Twitter, I just don't appreciate kind of his perspective on how things go with the game and how he would like to build teams and stuff. I really don't get it. I just think it's wrong, straight up. And he was very adamant about the fact that, yeah, you can't have these fighters because they don't protect guys or whatever. And the misinterpretation here, I think, is that having fighters will stop the other team from hitting your players, from hitting your superstars. It doesn't. And nobody in their right mind would sit there and actually believe that that's the case, that having Ryan Reeves, Max Domi, Tyler Bertuzzi, Jake McCabe, it's going to stop the other team from hitting Matthews Marner. It doesn't happen. It will not ever happen in the game of hockey. Sidney Crosby still gets hit. Ovechkin still gets hit. But the difference here that needs to be accounted for is that those guys might get hit, but guess what? Frederick Gaudreau, he's going to get hit, and Foligno is going to be fought. And if you take a jab at Samsonov, you take a jab at Joseph Woll, you're not going to get a little love tap to say, hey, don't do that. You're going to get punched in the face. You're going to get face washed. You're going to get wrestled to the ground. Like, this is genuinely the way that this is something that has been a massive problem for the Leafs in the past, and more so from a media or public perception where you look at them and say, they're soft, they're soft, they're soft. And it's not really because you're looking for guys to go out there and fight. Mind you, it is kind of nice that Reeves does that. It's the response. It's, do you respond to things that happen? You finally have someone who responds. You have people who respond. It's an infectious atmosphere and culture. And another underrated piece of the whole thing that I think is being severely overlooked here, these guys don't just bring that to the team. For one of the first times in a long time that I can remember was being in that building, you could feel it through the fans. And I know that some of these numbers guys, some of the analytics guys, they're not going to factor some of that stuff in. There is an element of being a human and being a person that plays a factor into these games. It's why you can't just do things on a spreadsheet, because if you could, then guess what? Before the season's even started over the past few seasons, you might as well have just handed the trophy to the Maple Leafs or to the Avalanche or to the Oilers, whoever you wanted, based on what analytics built. you can't necessarily rely on that because there's a human factor. There's a human element. That's why the games are played. And you know what factors into that? Emotion. Whether it be from their own personal things that they're going through on the ice, off the ice, whether it be from the energy that the fans are feeding them. And when you have guys like Reeves, Bertuzzi, and Domi out there, it pushes that through. Now, I can't necessarily speak to the way Reeves played here tonight. Being in the building, you'd kind of, I mean, you're basically looking at him and just seeing him lay massive hits. That's kind of the only thing that stands out from him there. Now, they were on the ice for the Minnesota goal that was that happened immediately after Toronto did score. I did see that. Keefe puts the fourth line out, and it's like, this is typical Sheldon Keefe. I tweeted that out as a Sheldon Keefe special. I can't understand why he does that. You have an opportunity here for momentum. Bertuzzi scores. The building was rocking, and you put the fourth line out there, and a goal is in the back of your net. Now, we will get to here throughout the course of this stream a little bit on Samsonov because I think that there's some concerns there. I know called in last year. For those of you who were familiar with the Sioux Greyhounds, you know, Jordan Sambrook, him and I have been talking back and forth. There's some concerns with Samsonov there. I see it in the chat right now from JW saying Sammy scares him. Blur Vanish there up arrowing at that. But like, you know, it's one of those things I am a little bit concerned with what we've seen out of him. But what it does do for me right now is make me very excited to see Joseph Woll hop in net because I think that this guy's going to be very good. I think he's going to compete for the starting job. I don't think it's as clear-cut 1-2 as maybe people expected it to be going into the season. I'm not really like sound the alarms panic button on Samsonov right now, but I'm definitely understanding and kind of in the same boat of people who are concerned with him. One thing we've talked about here on the show in last season's streams was that Samsonov has that element of panic where he is not really a structurally sound goaltender. He relies a lot on athleticism, and when he's dialed in, that's obviously great because the athleticism coincides with being dialed in, but then once that kind of starts to get a little bit to the point of like, hey, you can't just rely on this right now, or if the game starts to get finicky or panicky, then he kind of can start to get a little bit worked up, and then it seems to work against him. So that is one of the things that I think is a little bit concerning for me for him, and I think we're starting to see that here. But I don't know. Let's see what Wall can do. Let's also let him just kind of work things in, work into this season, and just see where it goes with him because I just don't want to sound the alarm bells on it yet. The other thing is, we joked about it before the season, but it kind of felt like Brad Treliving went into this one just going like, hey, we're just going to be able to outscore you. And I mean, we've seen it in the years of, you know, Grant Fuhr. One of the things that was talked about him a lot was he just made one more save than the other guy or let in one less goal than the other guy. We've talked about a lot how you might only need your goaltender to be good enough to get you through the season. And then once they get to once they get to the playoffs, you just need the guy to get hot, be hot. Maybe Samsonov can do that. Maybe he's just going to be good enough to get through the season and then be hot in the playoffs. I don't know. I again, still not really panicked on it, but it's 100% something to keep an eye on. And the people who are concerned about it, and especially people in the chat, people messaging me, people on Twitter, whatever it is, I can completely understand that concern there. Let's get to a few things in the chat. And before I do here, I do want to remind people, if you are watching the stream right now, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're trying to build things back up. Hit like here, as well as turn on notifications here on this channel. I do appreciate all of the support. I appreciate the people who follow me over here. A few different things here in the chat that I want to get to. Joe Hill, did you see Willie break his stick on the bench? LOL, that intensity in game 2 of the season will win us some games. Agreed. I mean, we've seen this Leafs team lollygag kind of through the seasons. That's why one reason I was excited to see what was going to happen this year is because like Willie is in a contract year. Matthews, frozen. That's not great. I don't know if you guys can hear me, but looks like we're frozen a little bit on cam here. Try to get that back, but while the camera is still going, while it's frozen on my screen. Anyways, in regards to Willie, where he's at, I don't even know what I can do about this. If there is any way that I could fix this. I'm not trying. Sorry, guys. I apologize, especially to those who just hit subscribe. This is tough. Anyways, when it comes to William Nylander and where this team's at right now, I'm trying to figure out if I can get this thing fixed right now, but I have no idea why this froze. This has never happened before. The fact that these guys have come out here ready to go right from day one, Matthews having the start to the season that he's having right now, Nylander coming out, he's got 3 goals through the first 2 games. Like, this is very, very, very positive signs for this team. Let's see if I can get this fixed. No, it says it'll shut down the stream. Can't be doing that. I don't know. There we go. We're good. Anyways, in regards to Willie, where it was at there, like, he's going into a contract year. Matthews goes 40, has 40 last year. It's a down year. He's going to be hungry. He was not happy with where it was. Now he's going to try to push back, fight back through this. Like, you're going to have an opportunity for each of these guys to have to fight back into this. Samsonov is going to be fighting for a job. He's fighting for money next year. Bertuzzi, Domi, these guys are fighting for contracts next year to make sure that they can play at the highest level that they possibly can. So they're going to be sitting there having to fight through things and play at the highest possible level. Like, each of these guys has something on their backs that is maybe good for them, to push them, to elevate them, to push them, make them play at a higher level than they've even played in years past. They all have some kind of string attached to them right now, where you're going to have to sit there and kind of push your game up. You're going to have to fight through things, and you're going to have to try to get back to levels that you've been at before. Having contracts sit there, knowing you're a UFA, knowing that you're going to be looking for more money, more term, whatever it is at the end of the season, is another factor to push ahead. And genuinely, I know that a lot of people are going to sit there and be like, well, you're going to lose these guys. You're going to lose so-and-so if he has a really good season. But you know what's also going to happen? If you lose a guy because he had an incredible season, it just helps the team. I'm a firm believer of that. Like, having a guy who can play very well, play to a high level, and graduate on from your team because they're going to be a UFA and going to sit there and need more money or demand more money after the season, because that's how the level that they played at to get there. What's wrong with that? If they help the team, if they win a Stanley Cup, like, Vegas sits there, looks at Riley Smith. They have to move on from him. He just won a Stanley Cup with them. He was there from day one, but they're like, we just won a cup. We have to go out there and try to win again. We're going to sign other guys here. We're going to bring other people in that we think can help us next season. Move on. It is what it is. Sometimes it's a business. You're trying to win. And if you have to move on from guys because they've priced themselves out of your market, but they've helped you be successful, I think that that's fine. I'm in a good position there. So yeah, definitely happy with the intensity that these guys have brought through the first couple. I think there's things structurally and within the systems that can be cleaned up. I think that there's some sloppy mental mistakes that are going on, but intensity, passion-wise, I do like it. And I mean, another thing here too to think about is, look about last game, what happens. The Leafs are down by 2 goals in the third period. I texted one of my buddies on Sandbrook, and I said, hey, like, this is kind of an opportunity to find out what you've got a little bit in some of these guys. Where are you at? Obviously, it's game 1, but it is game 1. Are you going to have that passion? Are you going to have that intensity? Are you going to try to fight back? Or are you going to say, oh, it's game 1, cares? Move on. They didn't. And not only did they not do that, but the big boys showed up. And Austin Matthews scores 2 goals to tie the game, send it to overtime, and give the team an opportunity to win, which they eventually do. Look at here tonight. Austin Matthews, 3 goals. William Nylander, 2 goals. Like, these guys are showing up and playing at a high level that is just kind of not something we've seen from this team right from the jump each year. JW saying, also, shout out Arnav. Appreciate it. Thank you for following over to this channel. I do appreciate the support. JW saying, love the fire I've seen from Willie tonight, especially it being only second game. Yeah. And then, like, I know even Joe saying, like, when was the last time we've seen intensity like this in game 2 of the season? Yeah, I do appreciate that. Continued conversation in the chat here, especially about Samsonov. I touched on that a little bit, but I do see this. JW saying, I'm really high on Woll and Nye. Big years coming for both. I hope so. We did see here tonight near the end of the game, especially Sheldon Keefe switch things up with the lines. We saw kind of them rolling the same structure where you had Bertuzzi, Matthews, Marner, Domi, Tavares, Nylander, Nyes, Minten, Yarncroke. My concern with that third line is along the lines of when it comes to Yarncroke, he's not a driver. He's not a bottom 6 guy who makes things happen there. He needs to be in the top 6 to be able to capitalize. Like, even tonight, he scores the goal. I believe at that point in time, he had been on the ice with Nylander and Tavares there. He did get shifted into that in the third period, but it kind of just goes to the point of, like, he's not a driver to drive play, drive lines, that kind of stuff. So when he's on a line with 2 rookies, I think Nyes can drive it, but you're kind of just, again, you have to understand that you're going with guys who are just getting familiar, getting their feet wet in an NHL atmosphere, in an NHL schedule, like those kind of things. They can put some pressure on you from that standpoint. So I just kind of look at it and think that, hey, you're going to have opportunities here for those guys. I think Nyes is going to continue to develop. We did see the switch of Yarncroke going to the top 6. Truthfully, for me, if there's going to be a move, I think it's going to come after these 9 games once Minten is done. I think him and Nyes are good together right now. I don't think Minten's going to stay around after the 9. It's nothing against him. It's not because he's playing poorly. It's more just because, for better or for worse, he's just not necessarily noticeable on the ice. So if a guy's not going to be noticeable on the ice, then what is the point of kind of keeping him around, right? Like, you have an opportunity to send him back down. He could continue to grow after the 9 and continue to be more impactful, but as of right now, not gonna necessarily cut it for keeping this guy up and burning a year of ELC. I don't know. Maybe we see more from him through the next 7. I'd be very interested in that. It's not happening right now. Now, I'm seeing as well, Arnav B here says, Sup Leafs Nation, get ready for a crazy season. I say Matthews gets 65 or 70. He looks super motivated. Look, I'm saying 60. I said 60 plus. He's on pace for 246 still, which is hilarious to say because I made the joke about it after game 1. I was like, Matthews is on pace for 246. And then he scores here tonight, and then he scores again. And I'm like, I was doing the math of, like, what's 2.5 times 82? Like, I was going to put out the tweet and say, hey, he's on pace for such and such, and now. Then he scores 3, and he continues to stay on pace for 246. I'm saying he scores 60 plus. I see Mile High 6 there saying 55 to 60. No, I'm saying 60 plus. I do want to throw back to this. Meg saying, TBH, I disagree. Minten hasn't looked out of place. He's not going to wow you, but he's a solid third center right out of the gate. Maybe I didn't clarify, like, the point. I do agree. Like, he's a solid third. He's a good third line center, and I don't think he looks out of place at all. I really don't. It's more just I think that they're looking at this kid saying, like, maybe you could have Holmberg in there and do a similar thing, or you know what I mean? Like, maybe it's not the same, but you could have a guy come in, if they're looking at him at all and saying, like, oh, we're not blown away by this guy, it's just an opportunity to send him back to junior because, like, he does have that eligibility to go back there, and then he could just join the team next season. Like, Again, I'm not discrediting anything he's done so far. I do like him as a player. I like what he's brought. It's just for me more the fact that like maybe you just have that in another guy of like Holmberg or something, someone in the Marlies right now that you could just bring up and be in there. I'm just sitting here just being like, hey, he's being good. He's not out of place at all. He doesn't look bad. Nothing. He's just kind of a player. And maybe you're right, like Mile High 6, more NHL ready center. That's more what I'm saying. Hey, maybe you could find a more NHL ready center, or maybe you have one who's just here and can be an NHL player right now, and see where Minten's at his 9, and then let him go to juniors. Few more things from the chat. Joe Hill touching on the human psychology and the chemical. Yeah, behavioral psychology really needs to be utilized more in the NHL. I do think it's a factor for sure. Even that's where I'm coming from with like this physicality stuff. Now, in terms of Wall, before I move on from this, with Joseph Wall and where he's at, I'm excited to see what he can do, because I think that this guy could be one of those players where it's like, hey, you do have your own homegrown goaltender. He's going to be cheap, and it also gives you an opportunity to move on from Samsonov at the end, who is an expensive goaltender relatively. I think Wold pushes for the job. I personally think he takes it by the end of the year. I was right about my Samsonov take last year, saying he would be the number 1 into playoffs over Matt Murray. Let's see if I can go 2 for 2 on the goaltenders. I think Wall takes the number 1 job going in. I'm seeing... I'll go in chronological order of the chat right now because I see some other stuff. But Wall will push Sammy to be better. Yeah, I think that they're going to it should be a competition. Yeah, fight for the opening spot. Fight for the number 1 position. It just makes everyone better. I like the idea of internal competition where it's like you kind of have a guy breathing down your neck to say, you can't be comfortable. Like, you're not going to lose an NHL job here, but hey, maybe the other kid takes it and you go 50-50 instead of 55-45 or 60-40. Like, maybe it just becomes you're not just the guy, which means you kind of have to be on at all times. Maybe that's just where it goes. Mile High 6, appreciate the subscription. Appreciate you following over. I did see a sub there. If you see, I do have these new things on screen. Maybe that's why things froze up here while we were getting going. But subscriber count live updating on the screen tells you your latest subscriber. When we finally get to the point where we can monetize the channel, you'll see the latest super chat, who it came from, that kind of stuff. Top super chat throughout the stream. All those will be displayed on there, as well as the chat. As always, keep that function going. And just want to remind people here, there's more people watching than there are likes on the stream. So if you haven't hit the like button, haven't hit subscribe, please make sure to do so. It does help continue to grow. As I see people saying they couldn't find it, it does help us help other people who are looking for the content find the show as well. So please make sure to subscribe, hit like, and turn on notifications. But Mile High 6 here saying, what up? I was wondering where you went. Oh, well, I subscribed. You're the best. My dad loves your channel and then says takes defense to get better, and Sammy needs to get going. So, a few different things. First and foremost, I appreciate the support. Appreciate you coming over. Shout out to your dad. Do appreciate the support. I'm glad you enjoy the channel. Try to keep this, this is for everybody here. Everybody can get involved. Everybody can find things that they take away from the channel. We take calls on here, so people are always more than welcome to participate in chats, call in, all that kind of stuff. I think for today, probably not going to take calls. We'll just continue to run through some things. Chat's a little bit more lively tonight than it was even in game 1, so continue to get things rolling here and hopefully build up this channel back to where we had it before. But yes, thank you for following us over. Thank you for the subscription. Now, in terms of the final part here, this was very noticeable in person. I know people see this on TV. I saw it in the Montreal game. Very concerning. I had people messaging me about it, asking me my thoughts, just throughout the game. Something my dad personally is being very adamant about. The defense. Let's start there. We did kind of touch on Sammy to start the show, but I can get into that a little bit again here. But the defense. No easy way to put this other than it's not very good right now. Maybe it just needs some time to get going, but typically your offense is what needs some time to get going, and that seems to be just humming right out of the gate. The defense, guys, it's not very good. It's a combination of being not strong defensively in your own zone as a unit, as 5 men, and not just the actual D themselves. That has a little bit to factor into it, but truly, this is just the D as a whole. Brody has rapidly declined over the last 2 seasons. Now, if you had TJ Brody on your team, I think you're going to be okay, even still. But one of the big factors here that I continue to look at and I think just weighs him down or continues to sit on top of that is the contract. And he's sitting there with this heavy contract that's eating up a decent amount of the salary cap right now that you're going to look at and say, you're not playing at a $5 million AAV. Now, mind you, it's for 1 year here, but it's rapidly declined over the past couple of seasons. It just really started to fall off a cliff into the playoffs, and it kind of seems like he's picked up here where he left off in the playoffs last year. And at $5 million of a guy who's supposed to be one of the best shutdown defensemen on this team right now, it's not good. It's not good enough. Reality is, and especially at that price tag. Giordano, once Timmins gets going, once I think we start to see some of these guys in the Marlies, some of these young guys that we have there, I think you start to see maybe some of them get called up, some of them have an opportunity. I don't think Gio is going to play 82 games. I don't think he's going to be playing significant minutes within some of these. I think you're going to have to kind of find a way to not phase him out. I think that's the wrong way to put it, but just put him in a lesser role where he doesn't have to be relied upon so much because he is 40 years old now. Like, we can't have that being a guy who's going to play 20 minutes for a long period of time. Now, couple things. Riley, just don't expect him to be defensively great. I think that's one thing people should just kind of stop being so concerned with that. I know that that's kind of hard to do, but it's like you have to, as long as he's going to put some stock in, as long as he's going to be offensively productive, then I think you're fine. If he's not going to be offensively productive, a little bit of an issue. John Klingberg, not a very good defenseman. Good offensive defenseman, guy who can produce points, guy who can create offense, but not good defensively. Just very much not good defensively. I kind of watch him and I'm like, all right, he's just a fourth forward on the ice. Is he going to create offense? Can he break the puck out of the zone? He can. If he can get out there with a forward unit who can be defensively strong and consistent and reliable, then I think that you don't have to worry about him too much. If you can find a partner to play with him who can kind of ease things and anchor alongside of him and just take some of that defensive pressure and responsibility away, then I think that that's also another benefit to having him out there. And what he's done over the first couple of games here with this Leafs team, putting up, I believe now 3 points through his first 2 games with the Leafs. Hey, I'm happy with that because I think that this is a guy who can put up 60 to 65 points. I think he can be a strong contributor on this power play. And like, he's put up great numbers through his time in Dallas. He didn't have a good season in Anaheim last year. He was decent when he got to Minnesota, but not great. This is probably the most offensively explosive team that he's played on, where he's going to be surrounded by Matthews, Marner, Bertuzzi on the first line. And then if he doesn't get out on the ice with them, he's going to go down to that second line where he's going to be playing or paired with Tavares, Nylander, Domi, Nyes, Yarncroc, whoever you want to throw on that left wing. But like, even from first to second line, you're not experiencing such a significant drop-off in offensive talent, and he can continue to contribute at that. Then on top of that, he's going to be playing on the power play for 82 games, for as many power plays as we saw them get here tonight with Matthews, Tavares, Nylander, and Marner, like just stacked offensively. He's a great puck mover. He moves really well from side to side across the blue line. We've seen him now, actually. One thing I've noticed is he's pretty good at keeping pucks in when the opposing team tries to fire them out, even getting to pucks. He's got a long reach. He's a bigger body, so he can kind of get to things. I think he's going to be a great offensive contributor, but Again, I will just reiterate, he's not very good defensively. I don't have any expectations of him to be good defensively. Now, there's some concerns outside of that. Liljegren, to me, I haven't been the biggest fan of him through the first 2 games. Not really like panicked on him, but he needed to take a step this year, and to me right now, it just hasn't been there. McCabe, good, not great, is kind of where I'm at with McCabe as of right now. And that's kind of where I'll leave it with them. I'm not going to overanalyze his play through the first 2 games, but good, not great. Samsonov, I did touch on it at the beginning of the show, but just kind of to recap or circle back on it, with Samsonov, a little bit shaky. Joe Hill's here saying Sammy's too loose, but locked it down in the third. He did lock it down somewhat in the third. He'd still let in some shaky goals or some questionable goals. It's more just how are you going to respond? How are you going to bounce back? Some of those things. So Samsonov, for me, a little bit concerned, not pressing the panic button right now. Now, continue to get going. Arnett B, that third line is energetic, man. I love it with all the younglings and Domi shielding them. I do like Domi on that line. That was one thing that when I saw the switch happen, I was sitting with a roommate and I'm like, hey, this third line is going to be interesting because they're just going to buzz around. Like, they're going to be fast. They're going to be skilled. Are they going to be defensively responsible? Probably not. Are they going to take some risks? Likely. Could those be some costly risks? Likely, yes. In terms of actually production-wise, I don't know. I kind of like Domi being there with those guys more than Yarncroke because he's a good playmaker and he buzzes and he can kind of get things going himself a little bit more. And playing with those 2 guys, I think, is kind of fun. Now, do you want fun to be what you're relying upon? Not particularly to win Stanley Cups, but he's fun. It was fun to watch those 3 play together. Now, continuing on in the chat, Joe Hill, God, I hope we can beat Chicago on Monday. I hope so as well. I mean, it's one of those things, right? Like, the first game of the season was what I expected it to be against Montreal. I pretty much was in that situation. Like, this is the least surprising way for this game to play out of all time. I couldn't imagine that game going any other way. Habs scoring first 5 minutes of the game, continuing on, like, some of that stuff. I'm just like, this is very typical Leafs. But what wasn't typical Leafs was the fight back in the second period and the fight back in the third period. And the fact that they kind of didn't ever let themselves get out of it or feel out of it emotionally. You could feel the energy the entire time. And then even with where I was at tonight was like, hey, you're in a spot here where maybe you're going to see a little bit of regression. This is a good, in my opinion, good Minnesota team. You've got good players there, good goaltender on the other side. You put up 7, and Matthews hat trick. Nylander scores 2. Like, the big boys show up, and on top of that, the entire rest of the team played pretty well, and you just continue to get energy from Ryan Reeves. So maybe this isn't just going to be your typical Leafs versus a bottom feeder game on Monday night. We'll find out. We'll obviously be back here for the stream, so again, make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, but I'm excited to see it this Monday because I just get this feeling that it's going to be different than what we've seen before. And I am very, very excited about that. Very, very excited. I want to see what happens, and we'll be back here to break it down after that game on Monday night against Chicago and Connor Bedard. Mile High 6, that just frees up more cap for somebody, but would love to keep Nylander. Yes, would love to keep Nylander. Look, I will say this. I was going to tweet this out, but saving it for the show here. We might got to sign Nylander very quickly if you were the Leafs. If you're a Nylander, you're probably sitting there saying, we will talk contract at the end of the season because I'm going to score 82 goals this year. And then we'll come back to this conversation because my value, when I said $10 million in the summer and you didn't want to pay me that, guess what? Like, every time this guy goes on the ice and scores one of those goals, jack it up, jack it up, jack it up. And actually, while we're going to be talking about that right now, we might as well get to the play of the game. All right, play of the game. I'm interested to hear what everyone in the chat has as their play of the game, so please make sure to send over in the chat what you think was the best play of the game here tonight, what your favorite play of the game was. I'm interested to hear them. I will go through them, read them, shout them out here on the show, but easily for me, my play of the game was the William Nylander goal where he does the backhand toe drag, drives around outside, and tucks around the goaltender. Few things for me that kind of go into that one. One is the skill that it takes on that backhand toe drag to get around the guy. Just the execution of the play there was highlight reel worthy. It's beautiful to have that happen. Like, that was incredible to watch. It was so fun to watch and be in the stands for, because you could feel the energy as soon as he pulls it past the guy for the first time. Then he goes on the backhand toe drag. Every single person, you could feel that energy, the excitement go into it. And then as he kind of pulls it around and tucks around back around the goaltender, you could feel anticipation build, and then puck in the back of the net, tucks it in, and everyone just goes nuts. The lid felt like it was going to pop off that place. Like, I felt energy in that building that I have not felt at games in the past, and it felt like a very different atmosphere. And then good goal song. Happy about the goal song. So that is my play of the game. I am seeing a couple in the chat here. Revo hit his play of the game for me for sure. Doing it again here. There we go. Should be good again. But the Reeves hit absolutely levels the guy. Like, just lays the guy out. Back-to-back games now here with fights. Like, great energy brought from Reeves. You could feel the energy be pumped into that building when that happens. So that was kind of cool to see. I did like that, and especially that hit. I don't know the last time we've seen Leafs players making these hits on a consistent basis. Like, Reeves running around just absolutely bashing into guys was super fun to see. And to see him continue to just be a menace, and a guy that Sheldon Keefe loved having go out there, just love the vibes, love what he brought to the team, love what he brought into the energy in the arena. That was pretty cool to see. So I could definitely get behind that. As well, I'm seeing Matthews' first goal. I mean, yeah, that was pretty sick. Responds immediately to Minnesota scoring. Goes out there, rips. I mean, your best player goes out there and responds. Like, seeing this guy go and score and the energy that he puts in is so awesome and so fun to see. So loved what Austin Matthews brought and his goal as well. I'm also seeing Gerard Fraser saying, I was alive when Leafs last won the Cup. Matthews' most favorite player ever, but Nylander is a beast. Maybe might might outgoal Matthews this year. Hot take, 2 games in. Well, I mean, he's got a ways to go here. He's got 3 through his first 2. Matthews 6 through his first 2. So if Matthews keeps up on this pace, it doesn't matter what Nylander does. He's going to have a hard time catching up, that's for sure. Now, in regards to a few other things in the chat I see people saying that they went over to the old channel and commented that this is where I was at and they deleted it. Seems like that's being the case. I appreciate you guys going over there and commenting. I don't imagine that those are going to stick around. If they do live streams, put out more videos, I'm not going to tell you to do it, but if you do tell people where I am, then that is appreciated. I do appreciate you helping bring people over here. So thank you guys for the support. Thank you for that. Very, very, very much appreciated. Now, I didn't see this, but apparently Reeves got the game belt. I like that. I like that move from Matthews to give that over to him. But it's like, this guy could have also just kept the game belt for himself. He put a 3 spot and have 6. You're going to be on pace for 246 goals for this season. I mean, I think think that that's worthy. Back-to-back hat tricks to start the year. Everyone should be pretty fired up about that. A few more things in the chat we'll continue to go to. JW or Arnab B first saying, watching number 3 handle the puck and make crisp passes so well is so super weird. It does feel weird watching a number 3, right-handed number 3, make passes, skate well, and be offensive. Meg saying JW Klingberg's not looking great on the defensive end, but he's playing solid offensively. I would agree with that as well. Now, JW saying Brody should be playing in Gio's slot. Gio should be in the nursing home. Well, look, I don't have a problem with Gio being here. It's just clear that he can't be playing some of these elevated minutes or being relied upon to the extent that he is. I just would kind of not put him in some of those positions, move away from it, maybe limit some of his minutes, limit his matchups, whatever is best in those spots. But yeah, I think Brody should probably be pushed down and pushed away, maybe, especially if he's going to be at $5 million for the way that he's played so far. Meg, in terms of the rest, our so-called defensive defensemen in McCabe and Brody have looked pretty concerning. Agreed. I do agree with that. Gerard Fraser, what am I missing? No need to answer. New channel, different vibe. Awesome. Yes, new channel, different things going on here, different screen setup, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully we can get this sorted out. I can't figure out why the screen kept freezing. Didn't happen in the last stream. We even took callers and had all these other things going. So it's interesting for this to continue to do that, but it is what it is. We push on and hopefully we can get things going. But yeah, we'll have this fixed for the next one. Now, continuing on in the chat before we wrap things up, and then we'll get to grades of the game here because I don't want this thing to freeze yet again. Mile High 6. The team needs to learn how to clear the puck more. Just creates way too many opportunities. Yes, that is frustrating. That is concerning as well. That was something that I was kind of like freaking out about, where it's like, okay, can we get some of these pucks out? I mean, you're looking at spots, especially late in the game, holding leads. Yeah, you go up a couple goals, but commit to getting the puck out. Play some responsible defensive zone hockey, and I think things would be a lot better. Arnett B, I think Brad had to pull a move for a big defenseman who can clear the net, especially for the playoffs. I kind of think he will. Like, I don't think he's done here. I think that there's more to come. So especially this team is still going to be pressed up against the cap, and when you have some of these guys come back off of injured reserve or whatever it is, you're going to have to move some pieces around, and I think that he's going to look and say, this team isn't as good as it can be, or I think it needs to be to win a Stanley Cup. And, I mean, Arnett B even bringing up Brad is going to trade Brody again. He never liked him in Calgary, and hopefully we'll bring in a big D-man in return. Now, I don't know how likely it is for him to bring in a big D-man in return in a deal with Brody, but what I would suggest is that it might be a combination of moves that take place here for this to happen, because you might have to move Brody in order to open up some cap space and then go and look at some other players, prospects, picks, whatever it is, to move out to bring in that defenseman. So I think that's where we might see some of these moves made. But yeah, he did try to trade Brody. He tried to trade him when he was in Calgary for Nazem Kadri. Kadri had a modified no trade, and one of the teams that he didn't want to be traded to at that point in time was Calgary, so he said no. And then obviously the Leafs went out and signed Brody in the offseason. He was a good signing at the time. It just has declined more rapidly than maybe anticipated at that point. So it is what it is there. Meg, I am very pleased with our forward group, though. It's never looked so good / deep and a bit edgy. Yeah, that's one of the things. I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about and kind of think is important here is that the way that this team responds. It's not necessarily that you have to go and fight or bash people's heads in. But like one of the biggest differences is that there's a response. We saw Samsonov get his glove slashed. I think it was in the third period, and immediately you see all 5 Leafs players jump in and start grabbing people, throwing punches, face washing, headlocks, wrestling, whatever it is. You see Domi responding and going and wrestling guys in the corner. Like this is a different feel Leafs team than we've had in the past, with some extra edge, and you just basically don't take away skill, because guess what? Bertuzzi, more skilled than Bunting. Domi, better top 6 player than where Dennis Malgin was to start the year last year. Might be better help to the top 6 than even what a guy like Kali Yarnko could do. So you're going to have a bunch of different pieces who can help from a skill perspective. You added Nyes, you added some size there with him, you added some physicality, you added some skill. You added some skill in Klingberg. Like, there was a lot of good things that were added from skill, and then you also just got bigger and stronger and meaner. So I like the moves that were made. Yeah, Mile High 6 saying I forgot about Dennis the Menace. Yeah, Dennis, for those who forget, was playing in the top 6 to start the season last year. So, very much a different feel. Final thing we'll get to here before we close out the stream here tonight.
You want answers? I think I can't handle the truth.
Grades of the game. Grades of the game here tonight. I'm going to go with an A-. As far as the A- goes for this team, why I'm going to give that, it's because I think that you put up 7. Nylander scores 2. Your power play seemed decent. I still am not the biggest fan of the neutral zone entry, the way that they go about things, but put up a ton. Again, physicality remained, the energy remained, the ability to hold on to the lead stayed. Like, they fought through that. Defensively, Samsonov shaky. Defense not so great. Gave up some kind of crappy stuff there. But that being said, game 2, and you're getting this whole team together. You're running them out there on a consistent basis now. You're seeing what you've got out of some of these guys. Continues to build from that standpoint. I'm liking what I'm seeing so far out of the forward group. I would like to see some improvement defensively and in the D zone, but hey, we continue to build. I like where we're at game 2 right now. I would like to see some improvements in some other parts of the game, but just in general thoughts, general feel, A- I think is good for me. So, to recap, yeah, Mile High 6. You can't complain about putting up 7 goals. You definitely cannot complain about putting up 7 goals. So, appreciate that. But, all right, so to recap, play of the game, Nylander, backhand toe drag, drives around, tucks. Austin Matthews, 6 goals through his first 2 games. Nylander, 3 through his first 2 games. Klingberg, 3 points through the first 2 games. Happy with what I'm seeing out of those guys. Sammy could be better. I did see we're outscoring opponents in the first 2 games, 12-9. Like, yeah, you can put up 12. Probably shouldn't be allowing 9 in these spots. So that to me is a little bit concerning, but we'll clean that up. Keep moving forward. Grade of the game, A-. Thank you guys so much for tuning in here. Thank you guys for liking the stream, for subscribing to the channel. If you haven't already, please, while you're here, or while you're leaving, or if you're watching this back, please make sure to hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications if you haven't already. I do appreciate the support. I appreciate everyone coming over here. Thank you guys so much. I look forward to seeing you in more videos that I post. I'll see you guys all in the comments. And as well, specifically, we will see you on Monday after the game against the Chicago Blackhawks. And as always, everyone, keep